Hey, good evening. My name is Tracy Craig, and I'll be moderating tonight's meeting. With me is John Kermani, who will be handling all the controls to make the Zoom webinar work. This meeting is being hosted by the Alameda County Department of Environmental Health and is being held to discuss, and most importantly, to receive comments on the proposed environmental activities for the Ruby Street Apartments project. We have Spanish translation in real time, so I'm going to hand this over to John for just a moment to explain how that works and then have our translator translate that explanation.
Good evening, everyone. As Tracy mentioned, we have Spanish interpretation, so if you'd like to listen to the Spanish audio, you just need to click on the globe icon and choose English or Spanish as your audio choice. And if you like, you can also mute the original audio so that you just hear it in the language of your choosing. I'm going to let the Spanish interpreter translate those instructions, and then we'll get started.
Buenas noches a todos. Tenemos interpretación al español y si desean escucharla pueden hacer clic en el icono del globo que se encuentra en la parte inferior de su pantalla y después escoger el idioma que deseen escuchar. Si es el caso, español. Si desean hacerlo a través de su teléfono celular, van a encontrar 3 puntos en los que hay que hacer clic y también van a encontrar la opción del idioma que deseen escuchar. Si desean escuchar solamente el audio de la interpretación, pueden silenciar el audio original.
Thank you, and I'll now turn on the interpretation feature.
Hey, thank you. Again, my name is Tracy Craig. I'll be moderating tonight's meeting for the Alameda County Department of Environmental Health. First, I'd like to thank all attendees for attending. We are very glad you're here. I also want to answer one comment I just got. It said, are we losing 5 minutes for comments since you are starting 5 minutes late? No, we will stay 5 minutes after or even 10 minutes after because we very much want to get your input tonight. A couple things to note, as we said, we have Spanish interpretation. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to GeoTracker tomorrow so that people can watch it at a later date if they so choose. And also, this is a Zoom webinar, so that means that attendees don't have audio or visual feed. However, we do want to hear from you. So you can raise your hand at any time and John will unmute you and you can talk. Or you can use the Q&A function, which somebody just did for our first question. Okay. This meeting is being held to provide information about and receive public comments on the remedial excavation plans and the underground storage tank removal activities that are being proposed for the Ruby Street apartment project. We are in the middle of a public comment period. That public comment period runs from August 14th through September 13th, 2023, and was announced through a fact sheet that was distributed by Alameda County Department of Environmental Health via US mail. I want to make it clear this meeting is solely about environmental activities and not about the project itself, which has been already entitled by the Alameda County Public Works Agency. John, can I have the next? There it is, the agenda. Thank you. So this is our agenda. We'll start with introductions, followed by about a 20-minute presentation, and then we'll have questions and answers. I would like to ask if you hold your questions during the presentation because they usually get answered on the next slide or so, unless it's a clarifying question. And then if you do have that, please just once again, raise your hand virtually or type that in the Q&A box. We'll be monitoring both hand raising and the Q&A function. Okay. So if you wish to ask a clarifying question, again, raise your hand. And then I'd like to introduce our project team and what they do. So first of all, I think most people probably know Ruby Street. They own parcel A, and they're going to be overseeing the remediation and also development. And your main contact there is Ellen Morris. And Ellen, if you'd raise your hand, that'd be great. Pretty obvious you have Eden Housing behind you. And then their environmental consultant is GSI. You can read what they're doing, but they're overseeing the environmental work, and that work is going to be overseen by Alameda County Department of Environmental Health. And their main consultant there is Patrick Galvin. Patrick, if you'd raise your hand so people can see your face, thank you. And then we have Robert Obayashi, who is actually the general contractor. And with us tonight from there, we have Megan Rice. And then last, we have the Hayward Area Recreation Park District. They are not here tonight, but they're the property B parcel owner. And we do have a map in just a moment that shows those two parcels if you're unfamiliar with those. Next slide, John. Okay, so this is the regulatory agencies that we have here. So tonight, this is Alameda County Department of Environmental Health's meeting. And with us tonight, we have Dylan Rowe, who is the Chief of Land and Water. Dylan, if you'd raise your hand. Great. And then we have the case manager, Drew York. So I want to be clear, the Alameda County Department of Environmental Health oversees the environmental work that will be done in support of future construction activities. And then we also have the Alameda County Department of Environmental Health, but this is called the CUPA, Certified United Program Agency, and they will be overseeing the underground storage tank removal. Dylan and Drew work very closely with that agency on lots of projects, so they're well coordinated. We also have the Public Works Department, and they oversee the demolition work and redevelopment construction. And finally, we have the Bay Area Air Quality Management District. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District takes complaints about dust and noise. You can also call me about those as well, and I can get you to the right parties, or we can quickly take care of the issue. Okay, next slide, John. So this is a site location. I think most people are familiar with this. We have parcel A, which is the big purple parcel, and that's owned by Eden. And then we have parcel B, which will be developed into a park. And then finally, not shown on this map, we have parcel C. Parcel C is also owned by Eden, and it runs adjacent to the creek, and that will be referred to throughout the presentation. So we wanted to make sure that we discuss that. Next slide, John. Okay, and then I am going to hand this over to Dylan Rowe now to go through this. Or Dylan, do you want me to do this?
You can do this. I'll do
Okay.
the next one.
So quickly, a site overview. As I said before, Alameda County Public Works has entitled this project as to have an affordable housing development, and that will be on parcel A. Parks and Rec will be building a park on parcel B. Past site uses have contaminated the site, and Alameda County Department of Environmental Health will be overseeing the cleanup of the property to support redevelopment. I want to make it clear, Ruby Street didn't contaminate the property, but they are cleaning it up to support development. So the majority of our presentation is obviously going to focus on how we're proposing to clean up the site, and then also getting comments from the public. And Dylan, I believe now you.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I am Dylan Rowe. I'm the Chief of the Land and Water Protection Division for Alameda County Department of Environmental Health. And I want to give you a little bit of an overview of our involvement, my agency's involvement on this project. The project, as Tracy said, was entitled by the Alameda County Public Works or Alameda County Planning Department, and the Alameda County Public Works Agency is the agency responsible for issuing building permits. We were unaware of this project until June of 2023 when Ruby Street came to us to discuss environmental clearance of subsurface conditions at the site. This timeline that you're seeing here, I don't have to go through it specifically, but it shows in the past 3 months how much work we have done to execute an agreement with Ruby Street LP to provide oversight and develop remedial excavation plans and a community air monitoring plan that will be implemented during the work. Issuance of a fact sheet, which you all should have received. You probably did receive. That's why you're on this call, and setting up a community meeting tonight. We have issued some letters for pre-work that is not involved in the remedial excavation, rather some preparation work to get a little more information to refine the activities that are going to go on. The 30-day public comment period on the draft remedial soil excavation plan and community air monitoring plan ends on September 13th. And based on all comments received that are in written form that have to do with the remedial excavation, we will ask for revised documents if warranted. And the intent is that that would get turned around very quickly with Alameda County approval of the documents and clearance for the remediation work on September 15th. Now I want to predicate that all in this, our approval is dependent on the completion of the public comment period and addressing all public comments related to remedial excavation in a satisfactory manner. Next slide. So there's been site preparation work going on out there. The majority of it overseen by Alameda County Public Works Agency as part of the grading permit. And those, so you have seen some activities going on at the site that has included bringing equipment on site and installing fencing and signage, security fencing and signage. There's been some potholing that we approved, that environmental health approved, just to verify the location of a known underground storage tank and to also evaluate, investigate a little bit more of a suspected tank. Stormwater protection measures have been and are being implemented to protect the creek and from any kind of runoff or adjacent streets from runoff during rain events. There is additional characterization that is going to happen tomorrow that has been approved by environmental health, which is collection of a few more soil samples to help in the characterization of soil and refine the extents of the soil remediation. Abatement of lead and asbestos containing materials is a standard practice in all demolition projects and is regulated by the building Alameda County Public Works Agency. And so abatement of lead and asbestos is going to occur right now. It's tentatively scheduled for August 29th. And that is in the existing structures on parcel B. Once the abatement has occurred, then the demolition of that structure will occur. Tentative date of September 5th, and concurrent timing of demolition waste hauling from off the site. These are all activities that are being regulated, overseen by Alameda County Public Works, except for the additional characterization. And we have been notified that an archaeologist will be on site during subsurface work. That is one of the conditions of the permitting of this site.
And Dylan, I'm going to stop you because Amber Jatani has raised her hand and would like to ask a clarifying question. So Amber, please feel free to talk.
Unmute. Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Site preparation work.
Yep.
There are lots of animals living on the site. There are deer, there are turkeys, there are foxes, there are skunks. There's all kinds of wildlife living there. What kind of preparation are you going to do with regard to them?
Well, again, and I appreciate that comment. I do not, that is not my jurisdiction. I'm assuming, and I can find out more about that, or your name was Amber, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
I can reach out to my counterparts over in Public Works to understand what their mitigation measures are. I am aware of, like, for instance, the archaeologist. I'm aware of the survey for bats that needs to happen before trees are removed. I do not know of other mitigation measures, and I can find out if there are any and confirm that. But again, that is a responsibility of other agencies for that oversight. I will make sure if there are mitigation measures or protection measures that need to be implemented and that are part of a permit, that we will not allow remediation work to occur before they have been implemented. And I guess I could ask Eden, do you have other mitigation measures besides that are part of your conditions of approval, besides the the bat survey and the archaeological?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're complying with all of the requirements put on us by CEQA. So in addition to what was already mentioned, we have a site biologist who will be conducting an environmental awareness training with all site construction staff. And then we'll also be installing, and it's called an exclusion fence, but it's a fence, an additional kind of fabric over the fence so that wildlife aren't able to enter the site. And
Excuse me, what did you just say? Wildlife aren't able to what on the site?
so that once the project is underway, it would protect wildlife from the site.
But they don't have another home. That's their home. That's where they live. That's where they've been living for decades. So I'm wondering about, relocating them or what's going to be done. Yeah, it's one thing about them not getting hurt by the project, but they live there. That's their habitat.
Amber, understood, and I'm going to move us along because that is not within the purview of Alameda County. Dylan can check into that, and I think Ellen can probably tell you more about the CEQA, but really, we really do want to focus on where our authority lies.
And what I can't say, Amber,
Site separation work. That's why I'm bringing it up.
yeah. Amber, what I can say to you is that I will make sure that I do not allow remediation work to begin if the measures that are required by other agencies have not been implemented. And I can find out about that.
Very good. And how will I find out about that?
I will write, so there's a.
You know what, Dylan, Amber, if you put your phone number in to me in the chat, I will phone you or email you, whichever is your preference. And I'll make sure that I follow up with you, not just tomorrow to check in, but also as soon as we have that information.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, sure. So just make sure you do that though in the Q&A box, and then John will take it down.
And we will also be, we will be, when I find out, we will put something in the written record because I want to make sure that items are being complied with also. So
that is disabled. So I can't put my phone number in.
No, in the Q&A.
Oh, in the Q&A, you said in
the Q&A, yes. And
okay, so I should put my name and my phone number. Okay.
Great, or your email, whichever is your preferred communication method.
Phone number would be best. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Dylan, keep going, please.
Yes, and just because I am going to keep going, but I'm going to ask Eden, I would like you to upload the CEQA document to GeoTracker case file, okay? Because that's where I see that information. And I'd also like you to upload your building permit and your grading permit, all the applications up to GeoTracker because they all coordinate, right? I'm not responsible for those, but I need to make sure that what I am doing is in coordination with that. So if you guys would work on that, that would be great. Okay. All right. Good comments. They're good comments. I appreciate them. So once the lead and the asbestos containing materials are removed from the residence, the structure, vertical demolition of that structure. Are there more than one structures or just one structure on parcel B? Megan, Ellen?
Two structures.
Two structures. Okay, then those structures will be demolished. The demolition that is allowed at this point in time is only above grade. It does not include the foundation and it does not include any kind of hardscape. That demolition will occur once we have completed the public comment period on remedial soil excavation because there is some lead impacted soil on this property and we do not want to expose that and have that exposed until we are ready to implement the remedial action. So next slide. So once remedial excavation is approved, so after we've completed public comment period and addressed written public comments that we've received regarding the remedial excavation, we will be approving the remedial excavation plans and the community air monitoring plans and providing clearance to implement the work. And again, I'm talking about the remedial work. And the first, so there's an aggressive time schedule here and I'm going to try to stick with it, but it's all dependent on us being able to address comments. So the first step is setting up air monitoring stations, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that later in the presentation. And those monitoring stations are there to protect the community during excavation of lead impacted soil. The biological survey that I am to confirm that no nesting birds, bats are in the trees prior to removal. Again, that's not an environmental health requirement, but that is part of the CEQA. And that will take place 7 days prior to tree removal work. Then the tree removal will occur, including the root ball. Actually, something that's not in here, guys, is there would be the demolition of hardscape. So first, once the biological survey is there, the demolition of hardscape will occur. So it's really foundations, then the tree removal. Removal of the underground storage tank that has been identified at the site, and that will be done under a permit by Alameda County's CUPA agency. We will coordinate with them on that. And then prior to the start of the excavation work for the lead impacted soil, my agency will distribute through Craig Communications a work notice. Letting you guys have, I believe we are doing 2 weeks. Is that correct, Tracy? 2 weeks notification on when those activities occur so that you will be up to date on that. The excavation is expected to take about 2 weeks. And after that excavation, all the soil that is excavated from the site will go to an offsite permitted landfill, an appropriate landfill. And then after that is done, construction will, grading will occur, and that will occur in mid-October with the intent that after the remedial soil excavation has been completed, a report will be submitted to environmental health for review, documenting that the soil was remediated in accordance with our approved plan.
And just one correction, Dylan, it's 7 days that we distribute the work notice. So
Okay, 7 days.
sorry about that.
Okay. Next slide. So what is all this about? Why are we doing this? Site investigation, or the site was previously used as a steam laundry. It had a pump house on it and had a lot of different residences on it historically. All those structures have been demoed except for the 2 structures on parcel B. And environmental investigations have been conducted from 2018 to 2023 to understand impacts to soil and the impacts that have been identified, or the chemicals that have been identified in soil include lead, organochlorine, chlorine, pesticides, and petroleum. There are volatile organic compounds detected in soil vapor, which is kind of the air in the spaces in soil. There has been chloroform detected in groundwater samples. And then, as I said, there is one underground storage tank. There was another suspected underground storage tank, but that has been resolved and nothing was found there. Groundwater samples, and I'll show you a map in a second, but groundwater samples were collected in the vicinity of these known and suspected USTs and along the property boundaries to evaluate potential impact to San Lorenzo Creek from any kind of releases from those USTs. Soil samples collected on the 2 parcels were collected to evaluate shallow soil impacts, mostly from maintenance and demolition of historic structures. So historic structures use lead-based paint. And when these structures were demolished, there were not regulations for hazardous materials abatement, which is what they're doing on these, currently doing on the existing parcels. So there's potential chemicals of concern in soil from that. No contamination has been detected above screening levels for protection of human health and the environment in groundwater and soil. The main impact that has been identified at the site is lead contaminations found in shallow soil from the lead-based paint. Next slide, and I think it'll help show this a little bit. So this is a portion of the site, and there's 3 slides here that kind of break the site up because it's fairly large. But the turquoise structure, the turquoise areas here are historic dwellings. The kind of dark or the medium pink ones are historic private garages. The dark pink is the former waterworks pump station. The yellow, the light yellow is the footprint of the new building that is going to be constructed. And then the light blue is basically parcel A. And this map shows a lot of different little dots, and they are the locations of groundwater samples, soil vapor samples, soil samples. And what we have found is the majority of the lead impacted soil is around the old structures, which is not surprising based on historic use of lead-based paint. Next slide, Tracy. This is kind of in the center of the site. Again, you can see the very edge of the proposed footprint, yellow. The green is the location of a historic steam laundry. And sometimes the word laundry brings in, well, it doesn't sometimes, it brings in the need to evaluate any kind of volatile organic compounds that may have been used in like a former dry cleaner. The investigation indicates that that volatile organic compounds were not used in the steam laundry, more likely a water steam kind of laundry. The turquoise again over here are more historic dwellings. The kind of medium pink again are more historic private garages. So there was a lot of development on the site. And again, you can see all the dots where soil vapor, and groundwater samples have been collected. The orange on this figure is the location of a suspected tank, and potholing in that area has confirmed that there is not a tank there. Rather, there were just some remnants of old concrete foundations. Next slide, please. And this is the last slide kind of showing the parcel. This is parcel B, the hard parcel, Hayward Park District's parcel. And it shows the location of historic dwellings and private garages. And again, a lot of soil samples and groundwater and soil vapor samples have been collected to define the impacts on the site. Next slide, please. So based on all that data collection, plans and specifications for removal of lead impacted soil have been prepared. They are in the case file on GeoTracker, and we have a link to that file for those of you that want to look at those plans and specifications. The plans basically call for excavation of soil contaminated with lead anywhere from 1.5 to 2 feet below the existing ground surface in certain locations. There will be sampling of soil in an area that's called a borrow pit that is proposed to use some of the soil in one area for use at another portions of the area, and that will be sampled just to make sure that it's appropriate for reusing on the site. If it is not appropriate, it will be disposed of off-site also at a landfill. The plans call for transportation of contaminated soil to off-site licensed disposal facilities. Excavations will be backfilled with clean material. So material that gets brought to the site has pretty strict requirements from environmental health to make sure that contaminated soil is not brought to the site. And then once the remedial excavation is done, there's going to be additional site-wide grading. And that is to prepare the site for foundations and utilities. That soil that is generated during the grading activities will also be tested to make sure that there is nothing that we haven't identified already, and a determination of whether it will be appropriate to use on site or if any of it needs to go to an off-site landfill. The plans have a lot of information in them, including how soil will be managed on site. And, we encourage you to look at them. They are, engineering plans and specifications. So they're dry, and if you're not familiar with them, they may be difficult to read, but that's kind of why I'm trying to lead you through what's going on. Next slide, please. So during this work, once we finish public comment and Eden is cleared to start the remedial excavation, my agency, the local oversight program, will be overseeing the subsurface cleanup work to make sure that it is being done in accordance with approved plans. Alameda County Public Works will oversee the demolition and redevelopment construction, including the foundation demolition and construction grading. There's a little bit of crossover in the construction grading because we're going to make sure that soil is tested and used appropriately. And then Coupa will oversee the removal of the one known UST that is buried in the northwest corner of the site. Next slide. Actually, go back to that slide for a minute. The remedial excavation work, you're going to see this kind of equipment. You're going to see kind of big excavators. You'll see a lot of spraying of dust. We're going to talk, or water to prevent dust generation. I'll talk a little bit about that. But the plan is that soil that will be excavated, the known lead soil, is going to be directly put into trucks and taken to a landfill. It will not be excavated and stockpiled. It will be loaded into trucks and removed from the site. That is correct, right, Patrick?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right.
We're going to direct load.
Okay, next slide. These are the excavation areas. They're a little hard to see, except they're the bright, the known excavation areas are the bright orange squares. There are on parcel B, soil with concentrations of lead greater than 160 milligrams per kilogram will be removed from the site. Those are screening levels that are protective of construction workers. Soil on parcel B will be cleaned up to a more strict standard, and it will be anything above 80 milligrams per kilogram. And that is because that site is going to be redeveloped with a park where there is more exposure. And so that cleanup level is protective of residential use. The other site's going to be covered with hardscape and a building foundation. And so there's two different cleanup standards being used. You can see on parcel B, there's a pretty significant area of lead excavation. That is mainly due to the stricter cleanup standard. And all of these excavations are where former historical structures were. So it is definitely appears to be related to lead-based paint. The green over there, that little dot, that green is where the underground storage tank is located. There has been some investigation of the tank, a collection of a sample, and it does not appear to have been used for petroleum, correct, Patrick?
Yes, well, we don't think so based
Yeah.
on the size and the shape of the tank. However, we're treating it like a hazardous substance tank for now until we can rule that out.
Okay. And that was a tank used that was over in a location of a former pump house. So that we will oversee, and if there is any contamination related to that, it will be excavated and dealt with under oversight of both the Coupa and my agency, the local oversight program agency. Next slide. So during all this work, there will be community protection measures in place. When you excavate lead, what we don't want is, can you not make noise, please? What we don't want is lead to migrate adhere to dust particles and migrate off-site where onto other properties. So there's going to be a pretty extensive community air monitoring plan, and there will be monitoring stations along the property lines. And I'll show you where those locations will be. And those will be monitored on a continuous basis during the remedial lead excavation to ensure that dust is not leaving the site at a level that could create human health risk, potential human health risk related to lead. And there is a plan called the Community Air Monitoring Plan that is up on in the case files on GeoTracker website that you can look at. Let's see. And so we've got multiple locations. There will be people on the ground also. Patrick's team will be on the ground monitoring monitoring stations, making sure they're working properly, and also monitoring that the construction is not generating dust. And there are measures for stopping work if there are exceedances of trigger levels. The trigger levels are health protective action levels. They have a lot of safety margins incorporated into them with the intent of being very protective of human health. Next slide. So this figure is small, but there is a bunch of blue dots and there are a bunch of green dots. And the green dots, well, so wind, you see a little figure there in the left-hand corner. That is a wind rose diagram. And it's a little counterintuitive, but it's based on, you know, long-term data from weather stations in the vicinity. And it shows that wind in the area, the predominant wind direction in this area goes from west to east. And so there are the green dots shown on along the property lines are considered upwind locations. The blue dots you can see on here are considered downwind locations. In any case, whether they're upwind or downwind, they will capture dust that is leaving the site. And basically you're just monitoring the difference between an upwind and a downwind sample to evaluate that to ensure that your dust protection measures are being implemented. Next slide, please. So there are some other community protection measures that will be implemented. These are implemented by the city. They are overseen by the city of Oakland. But they, some of them are overseen by both agencies, but they include soil management. So keeping soil damp, direct loading of trucks. These are measures that my agency will make sure are happening. Stockpiling soil when needed on plastic sheeting and covering and managing stockpile samples. Sorry, I have a lot of noise happening in my kitchen. Which is my office. Reducing vehicle speeds, right? All of this is the intent of keeping wind or keeping dust down, stopping work when wind exceeds a certain miles per hour, ensuring equipment is free of soil before it leaves the site. There's stormwater management to make sure that site runoff is controlled both towards the creek and onto adjacent streets. And then there's the cultural resources monitoring that is a requirement of the CEQA. We don't oversee that, but we are very clear that it is a requirement, and that is having an archaeologist on site during all subsurface work and stopping work and doing the appropriate measures if artifacts are found. And then also there is site signage. It is up now, correct, guys? We have signs up. Okay. That have contact information. Tracy Craig is your main point of contact for, in my opinion, she will direct you to the right people. And she is also really responsive. I'm gonna, I think Tracy, you were gonna talk about this one, but let's go to the next one. And I think then I'm gonna hand it back over to you.
Okay, so I'll do truck management really quickly. We recognize that there's going to be trucks associated with this work. Trucks will be staged on site, which means that they'll actually be on site. They'll limit idle time and driving speed. And that's really so they won't be parking on residential streets. Trucks are also covered and cleaned before they exit the site. And there's an approved truck route that we have to follow, both coming in and leaving the site. Next slide, John. And we're almost done. I just want to let people know. Communications, there is site signage up there. It has my cell phone number. I answer that cell phone 24/7, and I do mean that. If there's something that's going on that's bothering you or on the weekend, I always answer my cell phone. If I don't, I get back to people within a very short time frame. And I wouldn't encourage you to call me if I didn't mean that. So please call me if you have questions or concerns. All of our reports are uploaded on the Water Board's website, GeoTracker. It's a little bit cumbersome. If you can't find what you're looking for, you can also call me, and I will ask John Permani to call you to walk you through it, because it's a little bit tough to go through, but I'm happy to do that too. And also, as Dylan said earlier, we'll be issuing a work notice 7 days before the work starts. And that's the environmental portion of the work. Next slide, John. This is our schedule, and I really just want to focus right now on the public comment period. It closes on September 13th, I think, actually. It's a 30-day public comment period. Alameda County will review those comments, and then we'll issue what's called a response to comment documents. And that looks at how that explains how we considered comments in making a final decision on the remedial excavation plans and the UST removal. And then Alameda County will issue a clearance letter. Work notice goes out and the environmental cleanup begins. Work hours are 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. No work is planned on weekends. And of course, that schedule might change based on weather. How to provide comments. So again, we're in a public comment period. Want to be clear that the public comments need to be focused on the environmental cleanup. I understand that some people are not, and I do see your hand raised, Dr. Rose. I'll get through this slide and then I'll open up the floor. Want to make sure that people know that we really do need the comments to focus on the environmental investigation and cleanup, because that's within our purview. The project itself has been decided on and we have no say over that. To provide public comments, you can do so tonight. We are recording this meeting and all of those will be included in the response to comment. You can also email or call Drew York, and his information is right there. And it's also on the next slide. Okay, for more information, there is how to get to the GeoTracker website. This whole presentation will be uploaded to GeoTracker. We can also email it to you if you'd like to put your email in the Q&A box. And then once again, you can call Drew or you can call me. That's my cell phone. So if you like instant gratification, give me a call and I'll call you right back or answer my phone. And I think that concludes our presentation tonight, other than we're going to open this up for comments now. And I want to just stress once again, I know I sound like a broken record, but this meeting is about subsurface investigation and environmental cleanup work and not about the previously entitled project. I'd like to keep your comments focused on that. If you start commenting about that, I am going to stop you in the most polite possible way. And all comments related to the redevelopment project should be directed to the Alameda County Public Works Agency. If you don't have a contact there, I'm happy to provide you with one. And so with that, I'd like to open it up. I think because we have 16 attendees, I'd like you to give everybody one shot first, and then if we have extra time, we will go ahead and take other comments. I know we ran a little bit over, so I think that our team is willing to stay about 15 or 20 minutes late. Everybody likes to get out on time though, so I think we're willing to stay a little bit longer because we really do want to hear from you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and just number you off. I'll give you your name. Please remember your number. John will unmute you. So first, Dr. Selva, and next commenter would be Ramona Confer. And then I think it's Vivian is what that looks like to me. Those are the first three. And then anybody else, you please raise your hand. Go ahead, John. Thank you for your patience too. Okay, so Dr. Selva.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. I was wondering, it was mentioned about the wildlife who live there, and I really appreciate that concern. I was wondering also, and as part of that, I wanted to expand and ask about what are you going to do about all the life who live in the soil and underneath the soil? So for example, all the insects, all of those organisms, are you going to relocate them what are you going to do about that? Because that is essential to our health, to the environment, and they are a food source for other wildlife and the health of the soil that is required for all of life to live and food to grow and everything to grow. And so I was wondering, in addition to the obvious excavation of toxic materials that are clearly contributing to cancer, because there was no cancer until the arrival of the Europeans who invaded this land and have continued to commit genocide against the peoples, including the Ohlone, who specifically asked not to touch this land and to protect it, especially this project not to be approved. So I'm wondering, what are you going to do about all of the life who live in the soil and underneath the soil, who will clearly be murdered and plundered as you dig and dig? So I'm wondering, what will you do about all of the insects, the spiders, the organisms, the microorganisms? What will you be doing about them?
Got it. Okay.
So, you know, I appreciate your comments. I do. I know what we've done to this planet. I see what we've done to this planet every single day of my life in the work that I do. And there are no good answers to what we have done to this planet, nor are there good answers to what we're going to do about land that we have stolen from Native Americans. I will tell the truth of how I feel about that. I can't fix that. I only have jurisdiction in my job to make sure that chemicals that create a human health hazard and an environmental hazard are removed. And the remedial soil excavation at this site is quite shallow and is in limited areas, and it's not good soil. Nobody should be in that. Bugs shouldn't be in that. People shouldn't be in it. And we're going to remove that soil and replace it with clean soil. The rest of the site, I do not have jurisdiction over. I am just like you. I am at that point in time, I become a resident of Alameda County. So in my job as the chief of the Land and Water Protection Division, I have very strict rules and guidelines about what we do, and it is strictly about the overseeing of the removal and make sure that that the USTs are removed safely and any impacted soil removed, and that we remove contamination on the property. I do appreciate your comment, though. That I will say that I appreciate it, but I can't do anything about it.
Okay, Dr. Selva, is that an adequate answer, or do you have a follow-up question? If not, I'm going to move on to Ramona.
Well, just the fact that the insects will be murdered by being removed. I'm asked, where are they going to be relocated? What's going to happen to all those insects and other organisms who live in
so
the
I think
soil?
the answer is that the soil will be excavated, and there is really no plan for relocating insects. I think the soil will be taken off to a licensed disposal facility, and unfortunately, that just isn't within our purview to look at the underground insects and microorganisms. But comment noted.
Okay, so thousands of beings being murdered. Okay, good
Yes.
to know.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And then next I have Ramona Confer. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Ramona.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. Ruby Meadow is a sacred Ohlone site. This can never be replaced. Ruby Meadow is also an historical site that should be preserved. The cleanup will destroy habitat. Cleanup? What a disturbing way to describe destruction. Mental and physical health will suffer. Air monitoring is useless as the risks are not known until after the trigger levels are reached. The bats, birds, deer, insects, all wildlife deserve better than cutting and paving for the glory of money. Fencing to keep out the wildlife is murder. Unbelievable, but that is greed in the highest form. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I want to comment. I'm going to give a different perspective on the cleanup. Having lead impacted soil is a human health hazard to anybody. and there's exposure to it, and there are real risks to humans from lead impacted soil. So removing and targeting and focusing removal, whether this site was redeveloped or whether this site was just cleaned up to continue to be an open space, that soil should be removed. And again, I don't have any, Alameda County Department of Environmental Health does not have any authority over entitlement and improvements of development projects. I live in this county. I have lots of opinions about development projects, but that is in my role as a chief, I am responsible for taking care of hazardous materials that can cause a threat to the environment. And so in the world, if it was a perfect world, we'd be cleaning this stuff up and we would be returning it to the Indians. But we don't live in a perfect world. We all know that. Get out and vote. That's what I can say. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that that the removal of the impacts from man over the last 100 years are taken care of, so that whatever this property is used for, it is safe for that use.
Okay. Ramona, do you have something else you want to say, or can we move on to Vivian? I think it's Vivian, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to address what I had said about the air monitoring.
Okay.
It sounded to me like you won't know that it's dangerous until it's already dangerous.
The trigger points was the question. Yes.
Yes, that's what I said, after
Yes.
the trigger levels are reached.
Yeah. So it is a very valid question, and I would be having that same conversation if it was happening in my neighborhood. If dust is seen migrating from this site, I'm going to shut this site down. If dust is seen migrating from the site once I have finished my role, then the Alameda County Public Works should deal with that. But while the soil excavation is occurring, there are going to be a lot of controls in place. And I am quite serious about this. And anybody, any developer or any environmental consultant that's doing the work and knows me, knows that I will shut them down if they are creating any kind of dust. So the triggers, as I said in the presentation, the triggers are extremely conservative. So they're not it's not going to be a big giant windstorm of dust that is going to be allowed to occur. If there is an exceedance, it is a very short-term exceedance, and it will not, a short-term exposure, even if you were right there, a very short-term exposure does not have long-term human health risks. Lead impacted soil and impacts from lead impacted soil are over repeated exposures. And so there's a lot of literature regarding so I'll tell you specifically what's done. What's done on the perimeter of the fence is particulate matter monitoring, and it's a certain size of dust that if you exceed that dust level, and these are levels established by the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, but if you exceed that level of dust, you shut down anyways, because you can't be putting that much dust in the air. That dust number, which the Bay Area Air Quality Management District has come up with, is if you calculate the maximum concentration, there's calculations in the plans, you use the maximum lead concentrations that have been discovered at the site, and there are calculations that show what concentrations would be in in soil going across the site. And what it shows is that monitoring a molecule, it's called it's PM50 is what we're doing, Patrick, right? Ken, you're muted. 10, okay. That if you are monitoring lead for particulate matter size of PM10, that you are well below the concentrations that would create any potential short-term human health risk from lead going across the site. So There are a lot of multiple redundancies in place. This is going to occur for 2 weeks. And everybody on this call knows that I am not playing around with this, and that I expect this excavation to be done with care and to be done so that it does not impact this community.
Okay, I have a clarifying question in the chat box, and I just want to do a time check. It's 7 o'clock, and I'm going to propose to our team that we remain till 7:30 because we went over on our presentation, and I want to make sure that we hear everybody's comments. So I just want to say that. And so then I also want to say, Vivian, you're next, then Bruce King, then Meta. And the question we have that's just a follow-up is, do you advise keeping the windows closed during the excavation period?
I would, if I lived there, just because I wouldn't want dust in my house from any kind of construction. That, you know, I live in Berkeley, and I get dust all over my house from people driving on streets, and I try to keep my windows shut because I don't want that in there. Do I think that it's a human health risk? No, I think that there is going to be a lot of control here. Would I do it for 2 weeks? Yes, I would, just as an extra precaution.
Okay, then I'm going to move us on, and I would like to have Vivian. I want to make sure I'm saying your name right. Vivian?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi.
Hi there. Yes, you're saying Vivian, right?
Good. Want to make sure.
I couldn't remember how long you said we had to comment.
You know what? There really isn't a time. I just want to be cognizant. We have several people with their hands raised, and I want to give everybody a chance. So I'd ask you to monitor yourself and once again, keep the comments focused on what we're here for tonight, which is environmental work.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I live 1350 Roos Lane. It was a 12-acre farm, and it's gone now. And I go and visit it every now and then, and it's got houses on top of it. But the time that I was living there in 1975 or 6, when I was there, the 13 acres turned into 8 acres and 4 acres of water wetlands. Yeah, it turned into wetlands. And then in those wetlands, I watched as frogs. When's the last time you seen a frog? Frogs began to develop polywogs and such. And it was I was only in my 20s, but I watched this miracle, and I didn't realize that it was a miracle. And one of the things that I experienced living there was not only this wetland being produced during a rainstorm, but also burrowing owls were, you know, all around the property, and jackrabbits. I mean, just all these jackrabbits. And this was such an amazing place. And I didn't know enough then that I could have spoke up for the voiceless, as we all are doing. And then I would like to invite the presenter tonight to come on to Ruby Meadow and just see the deer and see the animals that really live there, and they won't understand this destruction. So I say stop, and I say consider rewilding, consider renewing this place or repairing it and bringing back a wild meadow so that wildlife can return, which you know it does. We've all seen it. And so that is my suggestion. And it would be great to meet and sit and circle with you all. And I mean that.
Vivian, I appreciate your comment. I do. I'm aligned in many of these thoughts in my own life. And again, I am going to come see this site. I don't have a lot of time in my work, but I know this area. And I also know that where I live in Berkeley, and that a lot of Ohlone land was taken, probably that very house that I am on was taken, and that we have filled wetlands, and that we have done all kinds of stuff. And And I can't, I'm not a young person, and if I was, maybe I'd change my profession and fight for that. But my profession is to protect human health and the environment from hazardous materials. And again, even if this was to be returned, even if there was a different land use for this, you still want to remove lead. You want to remove lead from soil. And that's what I'm doing. And lead is not good for the environment. It's not good for animals. There are, human health screening levels. There are also environmental screening levels for animals that ingest lead. So by removing this, it cleans up this little piece of the world where impacts from historic, and we all on this call have painted our houses with lead-based paint unless you're less than 30 years old. We as humans cannot get out of our way from continuing to develop products that end up harming our environment. And we got a big task in front of us, all of us, to encounter all the environmental challenges that go on. I'm going to stop, go out and vote. I'm going to clean up the lead from this parcel. But I would, I'll come out to the site and meet you. I'll come out and see the site. I will do that, but I can't change what's being done here. I can only clean this site up.
Okay. I'm going to move us on to Bruce King.
Hello, this is
Hey,
Bruce
Bruce,
King.
we can hear you. Yes, thank you.
Okay, this is Bruce King with Friends of San Lorenzo Creek. I appreciate the role and I understand the job that environmental health has here. I appreciate Eden Housing, that you need to help us build housing throughout our communities. It's unfortunate that we're just covering 2/3 of this site with parking lots. And so that's just a commentary. I do have a question. And we're losing Red Prairie and Oak Woodland. So the question is we have a conservation easement and we have a minimum creek setback lines, which should be clearly defined on the grading plans and on your plans. I think they are. Are you setting up fences so that there is no movement of soils or natural materials within those areas?
That is a very good comment. Again, I am aware of the conservation easement. I'm also aware that I think I understand that the parcel C, that there is some restoration being done, and maybe Eden can talk about that. That is being overseen by the Regional Water Board. But soil, we've worked on the remedial excavation plans to move excavation stockpiles away from the property lines, right? And if there are stockpiles, they will not be located near edges that can migrate onto the conservation easement. That mostly is going to be the responsibility of Alameda County Public Works, right, during the grading, to make sure that they are enforcing their standards. I can say, as long as I'm looking at the work that we're doing, I'm going to hold GSI and the contractor and Eden's feet to the fire and have them not impact the conservation easement with migration of soil. Management of soil is extremely important when you're excavating lead impacted soil.
Okay.
I can affirm that we're not grading within parcel C or the conservation easement.
Okay, is there going to be fencing up so that tractors and things can't roll into that area?
Yes.
Yes, there will be.
Okay, thank you.
And then I think that answers Julio's question in the chat box, which says, will there be monitoring of lead and other contamination to the creek? So I'm going to consider that answered. I do want to say, I want to turn this over now to Meta, but before I do that, I also want to say, Anne, you're next commenting, and then I have a comment in the question box. So Meta Macaulay, you can go ahead and unmute, or John can unmute you. John?
I can't unmute the person. I've asked them to unmute.
Okay, Meta,
Okay.
there you go. Good job.
Okay. So you can hear me now, right?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Maida McCauley, and I'm just representing myself. Thanks so much for your patience on these things. I was a little bit late coming in, and one of the slides that you showed was the sampling along Ruby towards what would have been probably the southeast part. And have those soil samples already been tested for the lead?
Yes, let's see. Why don't you roll, John, can you roll to that slide? There's the 3 slides that show the different sampling locations.
In the very beginning.
And so I was sort of wondering, because it looked like a lot of them were right along where the trees are. Are those going to be with this excavation and removal of contaminated soil and that kind of thing? How is that going to be affecting the soil that the trees are sitting in? And are we going to be able to save the trees and the root ball, but maybe not we might not be able to save the trees because they might be growing in leaded soil, right?
Yeah. So any tree removal is not my jurisdiction. Alameda
No, I know
County.
that.
Yeah. So I was going to try and explain trees that are located within the remedial soil excavation there are ways you can go about that. You can, if a tree is to be protected and retained, and if that is what's part of the grading and the development, then there are ways to, carefully dig around the roots to try to protect the tree and remove the soil around it. I believe all of the excavation areas. So question I have for Ellen and Eden is where we have these excavations. So could you go, John, to the slide that shows the excavation areas? Keep going. There. And can you blow that up a little bit? Can you make, oh, you probably can't, it's a PowerPoint. So the yellow areas are the areas where there is, and I see what you're saying now. Is it Maida? Is that how I pronounce it?
Yes.
Maida? It does look like those 4 orange boxes and the kind of that solid big piece of the orange box are all within tree areas on Ruby Street, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got another little one that looks like it has a tree on it. You've got some that look like they're outside of trees, but I believe, and I'm going to ask, I can't even remember who you people are. Sorry, I'm tired. I'm going to ask Eden, I believe you are removing all trees on this site. Is that correct?
We are.
So again, I can't comment on whether I like that idea. I don't like the idea, but I can't comment on that because it's not my jurisdiction.
This land is under the jurisdiction of Alameda County, is that correct?
Government is a convoluted structure.
Especially along here between Castro Valley and City of Hayward.
Yeah, this is Alameda County agency, so it's not like a city agency. It's Alameda County planning department who entitled it, and then it's Alameda County building department who has permitted it and issued the grading permits that also include the removal of all the trees on the site.
Okay, so that it's Alameda County.
It's Alameda County Public Works Department that entitled the project, correct, Ellen?
Alameda County Public Works Agency.
Yeah, the planning department is the one who entitled the project, and the Public Works Department who's issued the building permit.
Maida, would you like contact information, Maida, for those people?
Yeah, from what I understood, there's been some mandates, like you say, conflicting jurisdictional properties and all that kind of stuff, about saving trees or replacing trees that are removed.
Yeah. So, Ellen, do you guys have, because I know you've got some mitigation going on other properties. Are you mitigating on parcel C for removal of trees on this parcel?
We are replanting all trees on at least 1-to-1, and then if it's a tree in the riparian zone, which we're not planning to remove any trees in the riparian zone, but if there are any trees removed in the riparian zone, it would be a 3-to-1 replacement.
And where are you replacing those trees?
It would all be on site.
Okay, so you'll remove and then replace with probably young trees instead of mature trees, right?
It would, yeah. And I should clarify too, there is one tree that we are preserving that's right there at the bend in Ruby Street. So that'll be at the front of the building. And we've bonded around that tree to, make sure that we protect it.
The heritage oak that you were,
Exactly.
is that the one you were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. And how many trees is it that you're going to be removing? Eden?
I don't have the count off the top of my head, but we can share that information.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that.
And all this information should be in the CEQA document, I believe, where that's where your mitigation measures are. So I have asked Ellen to upload that document, Maida, to our case files. And then, if you give Tracy your information, we can give you a little more information and point you in, so just to help you understand what's being done at the site.
Yeah.
Maida, if you put your number in the Q&A, I will call you and I can give you more information on that.
Thank you, Tracy.
Of course. Thank you for your comment. And then I think there's just one other comment in here, and I know that next is Ann Morris representing Grove Way neighborhoods, but there's just a comment here. And so I think we answered this, but just in full disclosure, in the box, it says, in the question and answer, it says, will there be climate change mitigation measures due to the removal of trees? For instance, will new trees be planted for each removed tree? So again, that's in the CEQA document under the mitigation measures that will be uploaded to GeoTracker, and Ellen just gave us the ratio of replanting for trees removed. So I will consider that answered, and I will move us on to Ann Morris, representing Grove Way neighborhoods. I don't know why that's so hard for me to say. Ann?
Hi, Dr. Maris.
Hi.
I'm representing myself.
Okay.
As a resident, as well as I'm on multiple, committees and whatnot. And I'm a community advocate here, and I grew up in the 238 freeway project. This parcel was part of that canceled 238 freeway. So, it's really precious to us here because we've seen the destruction over my lifetime. I moved in here when I'm 11 in 1976. So we've seen nothing but decline here. And anyway, so that's my introduction of who I am. I went on to get my doctorate in biochemistry and molecular biology, but that doesn't really pertain to what we're talking about here, other than, I understand what molecules do to stuff. So my first question is, what statute required this meeting? Like, I was surprised that we even have a meeting. Why are we having this? Who required it?
So I required it, Alameda County Department of Environmental Health. Whenever, I can't give you the exact statute, but whenever a cleanup action is proposed, you go out to the community to get input. And even if it wasn't required, I'd still go out to the community to get input and let them know what's happening. Because I believe that that is the responsible thing to do. But it is standard practice with Regional Water Quality Control Board, with Department of Toxic Substance Control Board, with the United States EPA, local agencies, when we are considering a cleanup action to get input. We don't necessarily have to have a community meeting. We need to notify the community with a fact sheet distribution. But I asked for the meeting because I want to talk to you guys, and I want to tell you what I can do for you and what I cannot do for you.
Okay, great, thanks. And so, one of the reasons I asked that involves around notification, because we haven't been notified of any of the meetings involving funding the required public meetings for TEFRA and the bond hearings, or when this has come up at the Board of Supervisors, we weren't notified. It seems to be whenever it involves funding, we're not allowed to speak up to the funders. And I've seen numerous errors in documents that have been submitted to the funders. So I object to not receiving notifications. And even as the leader of the neighborhood group here, and the only neighborhood group in this entire area of the Baywood area and Southern Castro Valley, I wasn't notified. So the only reason I know is because the local newspaper reporter forwarded it to me and a neighbor forwarded it to me. And then as soon as I got that, I started trying to contact Andrew York. I've sent 2 emails, gotten no response. I've left multiple phone messages, gotten no response. And my main request was that we have so many seniors in this area, and people keep asking me, why is this not in person? How do I go? And you'd think everyone has learned during COVID how to do Zoom, but we remain, not all the seniors passed away during COVID, and we still have a lot of seniors, and you probably noticed people are having difficulty with Zoom right now.
Yep.
So my question was, if it is required, why aren't we having a public in-person option? But I see you say it's not required, so that's why.
And let me actually address that, because we did
Sure.
mail to a Radius mailing list, and I was looking at your email that I just got forwarded to me, and I saw that there were seniors that you'd like to have notified. So I personally am happy to come out and meet with seniors in person and take comments and go through this presentation. I can set up a presentation. I can set it up for Drew and Dylan to be on the computer, and I'm happy to set that up before the public comment period closes to make sure that we get to folks that aren't savvy. I will say that we've been doing meetings with Alameda County for quite some time, and our most well-attended meetings are actually virtual because it works for a larger population. And with the COVID uptick right now, it makes sense for us to do the in-person, the Zoom option. But that being said, I do recognize that not everybody can do the Zoom or do it well. I would be one of those. So happy to work with you and set up a meeting to come meet with those seniors. We can do it outside where it's probably safe, and make that work with their time frame. It can be in the evening. It can even be on a Saturday.
There's, we're not under a public health mandate right now.
I do know that. Yes.
Our advisory council meets in person. Everyone else is meeting in person. So yeah. So that's that.
Okay.
And it's not just seniors. It's the fact that people didn't know about the meeting, and I don't feel like, even though I'm a community advocate, I don't feel like it's my job as a volunteer when we're already suffering under all sorts of destruction, not just this, in this neighborhood because of the 238 project, just ongoing. Nothing good has come yet. And so it's not really my job to tell everyone. And so that's what I'm saying, is that a lot of people didn't even know. And so, yeah, so you need to do better noticing, unless you don't want to hear from people. And I know it's easier not to, but I hear Dylan's interested. So,
well, I think we are.
Let me talk for a minute, okay?
Sure.
So I am pretty interested. I'm probably the only agency that I know that spends as much time trying to get people to comment. This is the 4th community meeting I've been on all week, and I think there is a big discussion about whether virtual meetings or in-person meetings are better. Absolutely not everybody is computer savvy at all. We try to attack it in many different ways. Craig Communications is absolutely willing to go and talk to people and has done that. It's not very viable for me to go to 4 community meetings at a night when I work 14 hours a day. And I can be on a presentation and show people. So it's the world that we live in, and how do we best communicate? And right now, this is the way that we think we can best communicate, and we can get the most information out to people. Does everybody get notified? No. So the way we work on things is We have a radius of which we identify properties within a certain radius. It doesn't go beyond that because environmental cleanups don't go farther away to like a whole community where perhaps like the 238, and I don't know about that project, but I can imagine what you're talking about. That's a larger radius. It does disturb me that you were never given notification to go to meetings about funding and this project from other agencies, but I can't fix, I work every day to try to make other agencies do the right thing. What I can do, Anne, is do what I can do and talk to you guys about this one and really try to have an impact on this tiny little portion of the world in the way I can. But I cannot undo the harms of the 238 project. I cannot undo the harms of what we have done or what we're about to do to what I hear is a pretty lovely area. There are mandates by the state, which I don't have anything to do with, that require all this affordable housing to be built. Right there is just, it's just the world we live in, and it's tough, and I hear you. And so I'm glad you're on this call because I try to tell people, engage, participate in community meetings. I'm on a lot of community meetings where nobody shows up and there are serious concerns in my mind, and I try to get people to show up. And if you guys have comments that can help me address better the contamination at this site, I will seriously take them into consideration and make modifications if I need to. And I can't. I wish I could. I wish I was bigger than I am. I wish I could have some impact on some of these other issues. What I will tell you is if me or my staff aren't answering our phones or responding to emails, it's not because we're lazy, it's because we're swamped. But Drew is my right-hand guy. He and I work together constantly trying to address and work in communities. So if we miss something from you, we will write that. We will correct that and we will respond to you. And Drew, let's just make sure, right? I mean, you and I have so many emails coming at us on all these projects, and it's hard. And so, well, I think that you could have even sent me something, and I can't even stay up on my emails right now. That's why we have Tracy. That's why we want Tracy to field, be the main contact, because she will reach out to us because she is not buried by the amount of work that we are buried with right now. So again, encourage, and Tracy, this is probably even more important for us to say all the time. Maybe we take Drew off and we have it come to you because we're not always going to be able to respond. You're muted, Trace.
The communications expert. There you go. Thank you. And I would like to acknowledge, I'm sorry that your email wasn't acknowledged. I just saw your other one. If you'd like to give me your phone number, I'm perfectly happy to follow up with you and meet with those seniors or other folks before the close of the public comment period at a time that works.
Thanks. I appreciate your willingness to communicate. And yeah, it was 2 emails and about 4 phone messages, and my phone number's in my emails. So
yes, I saw that. So, and I have it here, so I will absolutely make sure that I follow up.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So that's the communication part.
Okay.
So I have some other comments. So I heard you say, ask them, the developer to upload the building permit to GeoTracker from Public Works.
Yep.
And I'd also request that the current grading plan be uploaded.
Yep.
The last grading plan that I saw, which was, I don't know if it was approved or not. I'm not sure. These approvals seems sort of flexible.
Yeah.
It required the top 10 feet of soil being removed. So this remediation is just kind of clearing the land for that. And so, and that's important because, the Housing Accountability Act, Section 65589.5, that's the Housing Accountability Act. The purpose of it, they say, is to protect the environment by allowing feasible development that takes into account the environmental factors. This project was pushed through during COVID, at the peak of COVID, and we never had our day in court. So what we've heard is that the CEQA documents were affirmed by a court. They were not affirmed by a court, and there's multiple issues. And so that's why we're running into stuff right now. When we went through the Board of Supervisors, in order to sue, we have to go through every possible appeal at the county level. And the community did that. And so at this Board of Supervisors level, we had condition number 31 added, which Eden Housing agreed to. And that condition is that no trees should be removed until all other permits are approved. And why we thought this was a sort of compromise was because we knew there were so many problems with this project and we didn't know where it was going to go. This is within, the CEQA sort of ignored a lot of stuff like the Ohlone site, CA-ALA-566. That's one of those digs that goes back 5,000 years ago, was within 30 feet of a proposed driveway. So if you're digging down and removing the top 10 feet of soil, it's not really a question. And that's sort of how it's been presented is, well, we didn't see anything on the surface, so there's probably nothing below. There's certainly something below. And so there is actual data and research that shows that, there's more probable sites to find archaeological stuff. And, it's mainly the indigenous societies congregated seasonally at flat areas near creek confluences, which is exactly what this is. So it fits, and that's that's research formulas and whatnot to calculate that. So definitely we expect something. We also have historical newspapers that say that pioneer settlers were complaining that they couldn't, at this site, they couldn't plant a tree or dig a hole without pulling out human bones. We had a body located 1 block over when someone was digging under their garage, and it was before the accounting kind of happened. This 238 project has gone on since before the 60s. And so the tribes in the CEQA, they weren't actually notified that a body had been found. And from what I hear, they get so much notifications that if they don't hear about that or the bones, they can't respond. They're busy too. So the CEQA, there's a lot of problems with it. And I know that's not our purpose today, but the condition number 31 of no trees being removed, we thought that would help. And in the public notice, it says that this cleanup is required for the building permit approval, which has not yet been approved, but then we see that it has been approved. So it's like this circular kind of logic, which I don't really get. It's like the developer was aware of all of these things that are having to be cleaned up to some degree, and chose to say they didn't matter, and they do matter. So in the CEQA document, there's 90 pages of chemical analysis. 45 of those pages just says not detected, ND, ND, ND. They didn't notice anything volatile or whatnot coming out of the soil. So, so we feel like the soil was really clean. In the 2018 phase 1 environmental analysis on page 2, it says no asbestos or lead was noted. Yeah. So, I was just kind of surprised to hear about all this stuff.
Well, let me respond to that, because I quite frankly never believe a phase 1, and yeah. I don't believe what consultants say in phase 1s ever. Mm-hmm. And I look at them and I say, you are going to have something here, and that's exactly what we did on this site when it came to us. And I looked at the phase 1, and Drew and I said, you're going to find lead on this site. You're going to find more lead than you think on this site. And that's because we understand historic structures, right? So what I can say to you, Ann, is I hear you. And I'm glad there's people like you out there that pay attention and read. And I am really sorry to hear the breakdown in the process, because it sounds like a breakdown in the community process. I don't know if the outcome would have been different, but I do think there was a breakdown in my agency counterparts within the county of doing their job. It sounds like it. I don't know. What I can say to you, and I need to, keep it focused on this, is that we don't believe anything anybody ever tells us. So we tell people to go out and collect more data and evaluate stuff. And that's why we know what there is, and we're going to deal with the contamination that we know. If soil is being taken down to 10 feet at this site, I haven't even been told that. It's not, I can't look at everything. The shallow soil, I suspect they're not going to find remnants in the upper 1.5 feet, because that soil's all been disturbed already. They may, right? But, I'm gonna say this, and it won't go over well with anybody, but the houses next to this site were once Ohlone land too. The house I live in Berkeley was Ohlone land too. We have all been taking stuff. That doesn't discount what you're saying, but we as human beings are not a very good lot. We have been doing bad stuff for a long time. And all I can do, I hear you. I want you to know that there's somebody in government that hears you. I'm not in the world that can do anything about that, but I can hear you and tell you that I'm going to make sure this lead needs to get out of your neighborhood.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
This, just today, I got an email from the State Department of Toxic Substances Control. And in the email, they're talking about equity community revitalization grant and equity, initiatives around vulnerable communities.
Yep.
And this was all pushed through right before we were declared a vulnerable community, a priority population under SB 1000. And one big role of SB 1000 is to protect the community from flooding. This is a liquefaction site. It's a flooding area. Homes historically have been lost on Ruby Meadow. We saw flooding in the meadow in January. Ideally, this site should be used to protect the community from flooding and should be able to collect flood water and be nice and clean and wonderful.
So I'd like to propose,
Dylan,
hang on 1 second. I'm going to make one last comment.
Okay.
And I would like to meet with you offline, okay? Because I can't keep meeting with you tonight on this. But
Okay.
if you are a community advocate and if you are in an impacted environmental justice community, then you are somebody I want to talk to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So
I hadn't heard your name before, so thank you.
yeah, my name's Dylan Rowe. I'm the chief of the Land and Water Protection Division, and I'm fierce in what I do.
I've just been trying to get a hold of Drew, so.
Yeah. Well, Drew works for me, and Drew is fierce in what he does too, but we are really swamped. But Tracy's going to give you my contact information, and I would be really happy to continue to discuss kind of all of this stuff that you're talking about, because it is something I'm very passionate about. I have a realm that I can work in, and it's a small impact, but I will do what I need to do in the realm I have. But I work in agencies where I think that these kinds of things need to be brought up to my counterparts. And I think we as a community need to talk about this kind of stuff. And we need housing, and we need all the things that we do. And we all got to figure out what we're doing on this planet, because we're really screwing it up.
Yeah, it's sad. Thank you. Okay, I'm done then. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to do a time check. It's 7:36. I'm going to just read one more comment. Ramona has raised her hand, and then I'm going to end the meeting, because I do like to try to give people their evenings back. So Julio has been very patient. He has a comment in the box, and it says, what is the protocol if native human remains are found? Will the project halt and land be rematriated?
I do not know, Julio, if that is not what I do. If human remains are found, so during the excavation that I oversee, there will be an archaeologist on site. I'm assuming, Ellen, this is in the CEQA document. Where is it that says what's going to happen if human remains are found?
It's in the CEQA document. There will be an archaeologist and a tribal monitor on site during the meeting.
So Julio, again, this is going to be a document I'm asking to be put up on GeoTracker. If you want to give us your contact information, I can lead you to a link to it to make it easier, and a section where they talk about that. I don't know exactly how they deal with it.
Okay. And then I think Ramona had her hand up, but I don't see her here any longer. So okay, well, I think we did get through all the questions. I'm going to give this over to Dylan. First of all, I'd like to say thank you, everybody, for your very passionate and beautiful comments. We appreciate it. Not easy always to hear, but we certainly appreciate your engagement, and we can do what we can do. So I want to give this to Dylan to end it.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're all saying, and I appreciate what you're saying. And I share a lot of the same feelings. And I would, if I lived in your neighborhood, I would be right with you. And I can do what I can do for you. And I can encourage you to keep talking. And I can encourage you to go to the polls and vote for your board of supervisors and your people that if you feel that they do not listen to you, and all the housing bills and everything that we got. I would say that everybody on this call that I have worked with are good people. Everybody has a job. None of us is evil. And we're all trying to do the thing that we are charged to do. And we're a messed up human race. That's what I have to say. So we keep talking about it. And I would be happy to talk to any of you offline more about community engagement and involvement in your neighborhood.
Okay, and with that, I have some people that I'll be calling and reaching out to tomorrow, and I'd like to thank everybody for their time and wish you a very pleasant rest of the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.